right, so are you ready to take a deep dive into what everyone's talking about these days? The future of work. I mean, we're talking AI revolution, hybrid work,
Yeah.
the skills you need to survive in this crazy new world.
Mm.
It's going to be wild, but don't worry, that's why we're here. You sent over some articles from McKinsey, Deloitte, the OECD, Forbes, and let me tell you, things are about to get interesting.
Yeah, it's true. The future of work is a hot topic right now. Everybody's got an opinion. What's fascinating is that even though there are a lot of different perspectives, everyone seems to agree on the major forces shaping the future.
Like AI.
Definitely.
McKinsey and OECD both agree. This isn't just some, tech trend. This is going to be a total game changer.
Yeah, they're comparing it to the Industrial Revolution, even the internet, in terms of just how much it's going to shake things up.
Wow.
Yeah, and this isn't some distant future we're talking about either.
Yeah.
McKinsey actually predicts we're going to be seeing major shifts in the workforce by 2030.
It's right around the corner.
Exactly, which is probably why Forbes found that almost every single company they surveyed is trying to hire people with AI skills.
Really?
Like this year. Not 5 years from now, this year.
That's huge.
It is, but McKinsey also found that all of this job growth, yeah, it's not going to be evenly distributed, high-skill jobs. Those are going to be in incredibly high demand, especially in STEM fields and healthcare, which makes sense, right? If you think about it, as AI starts to take over those more routine tasks, we're going to need people who can design these systems, implement them, manage them.
Right.
It's complex stuff.
Yeah. And then on the other side of that, the OECD reports that more than a quarter of jobs in their member countries, of course, are at high risk of being automated.
Yeah, that's a lot of people who might need to adapt their skill sets or even switch careers entirely.
Yeah.
And this is where I think things get really interesting.
Go ahead.
It's not about waiting for the robots to take over. It's about being proactive, thinking about how we can prepare for these shifts.
So we've got robots potentially coming for our jobs, but hey, maybe we could just all work from home in our pajamas, right?
Right.
We can't forget about the rise of remote work. McKinsey seems to think it's here to stay, but it's not quite as simple as everyone working from their couch forever.
Right. It's definitely more nuanced than that. McKinsey's research actually found that up to 25% of workers in advanced economies could go remote. But that leaves a lot of people whose jobs just can't be done from home. I mean, think about it. Nurses, construction workers, chefs, their work requires them to be physically present.
Yeah, that's true. And even when work can be done remotely, McKinsey points out that some things are just better in person.
Right.
Remember brainstorming sessions with your team.
Oh, yeah.
Or those tough conversations that are better had face-to-face.
For sure.
It seems like hybrid models, a mix of in-office and remote work, are kind of the sweet spot.
Absolutely. And McKinsey actually provides a framework for making hybrid work because it's not just about letting people work from home a few days a week. They highlight the importance of things like shifting toward what's called outcome-based management, where you're focusing on results rather than just hours worked.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in a hybrid or remote setup. You can't really look over someone's shoulder when they're working from their kitchen table, right?
Exactly. It's about trust and accountability. McKinsey also stresses the importance of intentionally building strong team dynamics in a hybrid setting. So making an effort to maintain those connections and foster collaboration, even when everyone isn't physically together.
And then there's the whole skills piece of the puzzle. This is where it gets really interesting because even with all this talk about AI replacing jobs, Forbes argues that it's actually going to create even more jobs, just like the internet did. Remember when social media manager wasn't even a thing?
Precisely. And while we can't predict every single new job that AI will create, we can look at sectors where it's already having a major impact, like customer service.
Which Forbes dives into. They talk about how AI is totally changing the customer service game. But it's not about robots replacing humans entirely. It's more about AI assisting human agents, freeing them up from those repetitive tasks so they can focus on what we humans do best.
Empathy, creativity, building relationships, those uniquely human skills that AI just can't replicate.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how AI doesn't necessarily equal fewer jobs, but rather a shift in the types of skills that are most valuable.
And the OECD echoes this, highlighting the importance of skill development and lifelong learning. Think of it this way, in this rapidly changing world of work, learning can't stop when you graduate. It's an ongoing process.
So we've got AI changing everything remote and hybrid work becoming the norm, and a whole new set of skills to master. Feeling a little overwhelmed.
It's a lot to process, no doubt. But remember, this whole deep dive is about giving you the insights you need to not just to survive, but to thrive in the future of work.
And a big part of that is understanding just how drastically the skills landscape is changing. Forbes made this mind-blowing point. The jobs that will exist when today's kids enter the workforce.
Yeah.
Most of them don't even exist yet.
Most of them don't even exist yet.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it really highlights what the OECD was saying about lifelong learning. Like, it's not enough to just have a set of skills. You need to be constantly learning and adapting to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the OECD's perspective becomes particularly interesting, because they really emphasize the role of governments and institutions in providing access to reskilling and upskilling opportunities.
Okay.
Because let's face it, not everyone has the time or resources to just drop everything and learn a whole new profession.
Yeah, especially if they're already juggling work and family responsibilities. It's not always as easy as just saying, oh, I'll learn to code.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that supports workers in making these transitions rather than just kind of leaving them to fend for themselves. Think apprenticeships, online courses, even partnerships between educational institutions and businesses to ensure people are learning the skills that are actually in demand.
So we've talked a lot about AI and the skills you'll need to thrive in this new world of work. But what about the actual work itself? How is that going to change?
Well, McKinsey's research seems to point to a shift towards more project-based work. Remember how we talked about those cross-functional teams earlier? That's going to become even more common. Instead of everyone having their own little silo, we'll see more collaboration across different departments and specializations.
So less about this is my job, that's your job, and more about coming together to solve problems and achieve shared goals.
Exactly. Imagine a team working on developing a new AI-powered product. You might have software engineers, data scientists, marketers, even customer service reps, all working together, each bringing their own unique expertise to the table.
Yeah. I can see how that would be super valuable, especially with AI bringing so many new possibilities to the table. But this also makes me think about another point that came up, the importance of soft skills.
Absolutely. Things like communication, collaboration, problem solving, adaptability, those are all going to be even more crucial in the future of work. Because even as AI automates certain tasks, it's those uniquely human skills that will truly set us apart.
Yeah, it's like that saying, technology can build the tools, but it's people who build the future. I don't know who said that originally, but
Right.
something like that.
And that's something that Deloitte also emphasizes in their research on what they call the extended and connected workforce. It's not just about the technology, it's about how we use it to connect, collaborate, and create value together.
Which reminds me of something McKinsey mentioned about outcome-based management. Instead of micromanaging people's time, it's about focusing on the results they deliver. That seems like it goes really hand in hand with this more collaborative, project-based approach to work.
Absolutely. It's about giving people more autonomy and flexibility in how they work, as long as they're delivering on those agreed upon outcomes,
Right.
which, as we talked about earlier, is particularly important in a hybrid or remote work environment.
So it's like we're moving away from this old school industrial era mindset of work being a place you go to like a more flexible and fluid understanding of work as something you do.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of the future of work, the evolving workplace itself.
Oh yeah, we can't forget about that. So far we've covered AI, the skills we'll need, even how the nature of work is changing. But what about the where? What's the workplace of the future going to look like? So far we've covered AI, the skills we'll need, even how the nature of work is changing. But what about the where? What's the workplace of the future going to look like?
That's a great question, and it's one that McKinsey explores in depth. They talk about the workplace becoming more fluid and dynamic.
Fluid and dynamic.
Yeah.
So less about being chained to a desk in a stuffy old office.
Exactly. Think more along the lines of flexible workspaces, co-working spaces, even virtual offices. We're already seeing the lines between work and life blur, and that trend is only going to accelerate.
Yeah, which makes sense, especially with the rise of remote work. If you're not tied to a specific location, you can work from anywhere, right? Coffee shops, co-working spaces, maybe even a beach somewhere if the Wi-Fi's good enough.
Right. And McKinsey points out how this can be a win-win for both employees and employers. Employees get more flexibility and autonomy, while employers can tap into a wider pool of talent. They're no longer limited by geography.
But what about the social aspect of work? I know I really miss those water cooler conversations and impromptu brainstorming sessions when I'm working remotely. Don't we still need to be around other people to feel connected and engaged?
That's a really important point, and it's something that McKinsey addresses directly. They emphasize the need for companies to create intentional opportunities for social interaction and collaboration, even in this more fluid and dynamic work environment.
So it's not just about providing a cool co-working space with ping pong tables and kombucha on tap. It's about fostering a sense of community and belonging, even when people aren't physically in the same location every day.
Exactly. It's about creating a work environment where people feel valued, connected, and inspired regardless of where they're physically located. That might mean more virtual team building activities, more frequent in person retreats, or even just finding creative ways to encourage informal interactions online.
It sounds like the companies that get this right, the ones that prioritize building a strong company culture, even in a more distributed setting, those are going to be the ones that attract and retain top talent in the future.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, work is still a very human endeavor. We crave connection, purpose, and a sense of belonging. The companies that figure out how to cultivate those things, regardless of where work happens, will have a huge advantage.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive AI, automation, remote work, the skills you'll need, even what the workplace of the future might look like. It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the future of work is not something to be feared. It's an opportunity to rethink how we work, what we value, and how we can create a more fulfilling and meaningful work experience for everyone. And that's something we can all be a part of, shaping no matter what our role or industry.
It's about embracing the possibilities, staying curious, and never stopping learning.
Exactly. By being adaptable, embracing lifelong learning, and focusing on those uniquely human skills, we can all thrive in this exciting new world of work that's unfolding before us.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive. And one thing that really stuck with me is this idea from Forbes. The jobs that will exist when today's kids enter the workforce, most of them don't even exist yet.
It's true, and it really highlights the need for adaptability and a mindset of continuous learning. The future of work isn't about fearing change, but embracing it. What excites you most about the possibilities, and what steps can you take today to prepare for the future?